Fast Phobia Cure. Okay. So this really is a process that can be used to really distance yourself, if you like, from any unpleasant memory, as well as a phobia itself. What is a phobia? Anybody? What's a phobia?
The fear of something irrational.
An irrational fear of something. I know I've turned your words around slightly there. Yeah?
Rather than you're naturally afraid of heights because it would be dangerous, and you're afraid of something dangerous. It's not a phobia. That's why there's not a phobia name for the kind of height thing. It's a different thing completely, but something like spiders or
Sure.
buttons.
Buttons, did you say?
Yeah.
Afraid of buttons? I see what you mean. Okay. Not pantomime. You're not afraid of pantomime. Buttons, every time Buttons comes on stage, it's like, oh, I start to shake. No.
It probably is a phobia.
Well, it could be.
The clown phobia.
It certainly could be. So a phobia is a fear of something, but where it goes much deeper than that, where, for example, you break out in sweats, your heart palpitations, you have an extreme reaction to something, which is really an irrational reaction to what's going on. For example, people may not like spiders, and to a certain extent, there are spiders that, of course, are dangerous, and it's wise to be wary of them. And that's a different thing. Really not liking something is one thing. Having a phobia or a phobic reaction to something is much, much greater than that. Does that make sense? So we're looking at those kinds of things. Does anybody here have a phobia? No? So we have a group of 20 people that have come out to the Fast Phobia Cure, and no one has a phobia. That's good, because obviously you're thinking about helping other people, which is wonderful. So if you were to have a phobia, what kind of phobias do you know about? Clowns. Again, clowns, yeah. So clowns, a fear of clowns. That's interesting. Fear of the dark.
Agoraphobia.
Girl phobia. Oh, agoraphobia. Agoraphobia.
Because agoraphobia is fear of sexual abuse.
Oh, yeah.
Close, you have to watch what you say.
Okay. So a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Agoraphobia, as opposed to agoraphobia.
Yes.
And could you just explain the difference again? Agoraphobia is
fear of sexual abuse.
fear of sexual abuse, and agoraphobia?
Fear of open spaces and crowds and those sorts of places as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Very important differentiation. What else?
Flying.
Flying, fear of flying. Yeah. Any others?
Birds.
Birds, fear of birds. Yeah, sure. Anybody else here? Claustrophobia. Some people have phobias about lifts and phobias about all kinds of things. So nobody here has a particular phobia that they're admitting to.
I had a sort of phobia up until the practitioner course.
You got rid of yours on the practitioner course. Okay, we'll do our best not to put it back again. Okay, good. Okay, so today, if you don't actually have a phobia, we'll go through the steps so that we can experience what the steps are, so that we can use them, you know, we can help other people with them. As if people come to you, for example, and have a phobia, you can put this process, or put them through this process to break that phobia. So let's take a look at that. Does anybody here, of course, there's a slight amount of role play going to be going on here if nobody has a phobia, or something that they really particularly dislike? Anything like that? Ooh, a fear of ringtones. Yes?
I don't like motorways very much.
Motorways, you don't like them?
Yeah.
In what way do you not like them?
People go too fast and you sort of just going straight. I feel sort of claustrophobic in a way because I'm not free to branch off. I have to go straight and I have
sure.
to go fast.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, does a phobia make sense? Yeah, no, I can understand. I can understand that. Highway phobia.
In fact, there's a couple of people I know that deal with phobias, and they say highway phobia is one of the ones they get most often.
Yeah.
People fear of motorway. So.
Yes, and you think how much that would restrict your life if you had to move around. Quite a bit, I would imagine. Hello, good evening, and welcome. Someone like David Frost. Please make yourself at home. Tom, if you could close the door for us, that'd be great as well, because I think they're going to rattle past a few times with some drinks. So let's take a look. Does anyone want to sort of role play the Fast Phobia Cure, as it's known, also is known as the VK dissociation, as we mentioned, the rewind technique, and so on and so forth. What we're really doing, what category of NLP change work would this fit into? Any ideas? What are we doing in the fast phobia cure? Everyone here has experienced it in one way or another, have they? And they've read about it, they've read these steps, they've done it on a master practitioner course. What are we doing in terms of the steps of that process? What are we really doing?
We're distorting the submodalities.
Yes, exactly. So we're playing with the submodalities. So it is a process that involves altering submodalities. And if you remember from your practitioner courses and so on, that when you alter submodalities, when you change the submodalities of something, it automatically also affects and then changes, of course, the way that you respond and react and feel to the thing that you were thinking about. Does that make sense? And that's essentially what we're doing with this process as well. So anybody like to play and just go through the process? It's a fun process. So how many people have seen the fast phobia cure? Yeah? Yeah, quite a few of you. It's a fun process. So who wants to play? Who'd like to play? Who'd like a free ticket to the cinema? Skyfall might be playing. No? Okay, missed that with that one. Bambi might be playing. No, missed with that one too. Lincoln could be playing. Ah!
Being the person being done to, not
The person being done to. Yes, the person being done to.
I'll be the person being done to.
You'd like to be the person being done to.
But I will be. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So, and you remember these beautiful stools?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Never get taxi.
there we go. Let me know if you need a hand. Okay, great. Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the steps, really, of the fast phobia cure. So first of all, thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you.
And welcome back. So we're going to look at a phobia or a potential phobia. I know you don't really, as such, as you say, have a phobia, but if you did, something that would be closest for you would be something like
The highways on it.
highways.
And motorways.
So motorways. So driving on a motorway. Anything particular about that?
The just not being free to move off, having to go straight, having to go fast.
Having to go fast?
Having to do something that I might not want to do. I might want to branch off that way. I might want to slow down, but I can't. On the motorway, you're...
So it's not having the choice to be able to get off?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Not having any choices, really.
Okay, not having any choices. Okay, fine. Let's look at that. Before we do that, can you think of a time? May I touch you during this process? With respect, of course.
You may, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So can you think of a time when you have been or you have felt incredibly sort of centered, very, very strong, very secure? There's a bit of time when you felt very secure. Yeah? Great. So what I'd like you to do is just think about that time and think about what it was that you were doing that led you to feel strong, safe, secure. How would you describe how you felt?
Empowered.
Empowered. Good, nice word.
Confident.
Confident. Good.
Relaxed.
Good. Empowered, confident, relaxed. Very nice.
In control.
In control. Good. So lots of resourceful states within that, yeah? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is just take your time now just to, if it helps you to close your eyes, you can, and to block this out if you want. You don't have to, of course. Just to put yourself back there and to re-experience that time, that situation. And connect with those feelings of feeling empowered and strong and confident and in control. And really sense how that was. And as you connect with it, sense how it is. And as you do that, how do you know you were feeling empowered in terms of what's your body telling you? feeling
more
that?
relaxed.
So where are you feeling the relaxation?
Shoulders
The shoulders. Okay, very good.
and my neck
And your neck. Good.
and my legs
And your legs.
and my feet.
And your feet.
Yeah. I'm sort of feeling heavier.
Hmm. And in terms of the empowerment and the confidence, where are you sensing that?
In the upper part of my body, I'm feeling sort of breathing easier.
So you're breathing easier, that's nice.
My shoulders are sort of looser.
The looser shoulders,
looser.
that's good. Can you sense that now?
Mhm.
Hmm. And what if you were to somehow amplify that a little? So that those feelings actually grow, so you're feeling even more relaxed, and your shoulders are even looser, and your breathing is even more steady and regular. That's good. And just sense how that feels. See also what your body is feeding back to you as you amplify that.
Feeling not sleepy.
Sleepy?
Relaxed.
Relaxed, okay. Okay, relaxed. And remember the empowerment?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And sense that again from that time that you're connecting to, that feeling of empowerment, and what was bringing that on, and where you were sensing and feeling that empowerment.
Feeling more upright.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So more upright in your physiology. That's good. And just for a moment, sense all of that. Feel your body feeding back to you as well as part of that loop. How does it feel? Does it feel good?
Yes, it feels good.
Feels good. That's great. That's great. And if you were able to just amplify that even just a little bit more, feeling that empowerment, that confidence, the looseness, the breathing, feel good? And if to say you were on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very relaxed and empowered and confident, where would you be on that scale, with 10 being the top?
8.
About 8, that's very good. And if it's possible, just allow that to amplify a little bit more. And as you do that, I'm just going to touch your shoulder here. That's good. Just keep it building if it's possible. And how does that feel?
Good.
Feels good? Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, now, and just shake off. And the cheeks. And everyone, no one gets away without the cheeks. Okay, good. So, okay. So good. Can you sense any of that? Can you sense any of those feelings? Yeah. Okay, good. I'll give that a shake again. Okay, good. So what we are doing with that is just setting a resource anchor. Because we're going to do a phobia cure, we're going to be dealing with a phobia. We don't know where we're going to go, really, because we're dealing with a human being, and you never know what's going to happen with a human being. So it's good to set a resource anchor just in case you need something to help the client move away from wherever they may find themselves. So it's good practice just to set a resource anchor at the beginning. And I'd suggest when you're doing many processes that you do that, because that could help you on whatever journey you'll find yourself on. Okay, good shake. Good. Have you ever learned something really quickly?
Must have. A specific.
Anything. It doesn't matter. Anything at all.
I'm sure I have.
I mean, one time
Something
you've
in
seen
an
something
instance.
and you've learned something.
Think of an instance.
You don't have to think of anything.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yes.
Yeah. So you can learn things pretty quickly.
Yes,
You know that,
yes,
yeah?
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, and you can learn something almost like that. I mean, most people who learn how to do a phobia, they learn how to do that phobia in an instant. Something happens, they fuse a visual with a kinesthetic, and the effect of that could stay with them potentially all their lives. And it took them maybe a couple of seconds to learn to fuse those two things together. That's pretty clever, isn't it? And we can learn things really, really fast. Yeah, and you're aware of that in your life as well, the ability to learn things. So, so we're very good at adapting, switching, and learning. So what we were talking about a short while ago was a kind of phobia, if not strictly speaking a phobia in this case, of driving on a motorway. And again, if you could just tell us again what it is about driving on a motorway which for you brings certain feelings.
Well, it's to do with having to go fast and not having any choice but to go fast.
I mean, I'm intrigued by this having to go fast.
Because you have to go above 50, don't you? And you can't turn off until you come, unless you come to what's it called?
An exit?
Exit, yeah, that's it.
Yep. Yeah, off we go.
Unless you come to an exit, and if you want to turn, you can't until you come to an exit.
Yeah. You
And
kind of...
it's sort of like a claustrophobia but in the other sense. So you're sort of stuck on the motorway and you can't get out until you get to an exit.
So you're stuck on this concrete highway.
Fast, and there's nothing, you can't look at the scenery.
Sure.
Because you have to concentrate on going ahead.
And so what feelings happen for you around that when you're driving along and you realize, oh my God, or whatever it is you say to yourself in your internal dialogue, I'm stuck on this road and I can't get off?
Panic sometimes, actually.
Yeah.
Hyperventilation. That sort of, oh, I want to get off, I can't.
Yeah.
I have to go straight, you know, I have to, and I can't go slow, I have to go fast.
So what kind of internal dialogue do you have when all that's going on?
What am I saying to myself? I'm saying, I wish I wasn't on this motorway. I don't want to be here.
I wish I wasn't on this motorway.
I wish
Don't want to be here.
I could be magicked from A to B.
Wish it could be magicked from A to B.
From A to B without having to use the motorway.
Okay. Any other things you say to yourself that you recognise when you think, yeah, I wish I wasn't here?
It's also, I mean, it's also logically, things don't happen on motorways, but when they do, it's pretty major. Whereas if you're driving along ordinary roads, then you can have a little bump or a little shunt, and it's not so major. But because on a motorway, you're having to go fast.
So the bumps and shunts you have on motorways are bigger events than they are on other roads?
Yes. Major
Okay.
ones, yeah.
So you're thinking about those things
Thinking
as
about
well?
that as well. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about the claustrophobia. I'm thinking about not wanting to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes, is it fair to say that all this dialogue is going on?
Yeah. Well, I don't go on them much, so it doesn't really happen. But last time I did, I remember, and I used to be okay in motorways, so I don't know why it's a sudden. As you say, I've learnt it.
You've learned to do it.
Quickly.
Good. Did anything happen? Was there some kind of incident or?
Well, I had a serious accident.
Well, I can't really think of one. There was that serious accident.
that wasn't on a motorway though.
Okay.
I got lost in one once and had to double back and go all the way back in. Felt very frustrated because I had to. I sort of got nearly there and then thought I wasn't there and had to go back again. And so it took me twice as long to get where it's supposed to be faster, aren't they? They're supposed to be faster, but it took twice as long.
I guess that's the idea.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I could have came off too soon and had to. There we go. When you come off, then you have to find your way back on again. So
And
it's very
what was
frustrating.
happening when that was going on? Because you remember that
I
it
feel
just sort of...
very frustrated and annoyed and as not empowered.
Okay.
Not empowered. Lacking power, lacking
So it's a loss of control.
loss of control. Yes, loss of control and power. And
Okay.
this motorway was ruining my life. You know, I wanted to do that, and the motorways say no. You have to
Okay.
do that.
So you've got all kinds of feelings associated to motorways, and
Yeah,
sometimes
lots of very-
palpitations, sometimes all the internal dialogue about it's being stuck on there, you can't get off, you've got to go at a certain speed. Accidents are bigger often on motorways than they are on other roads. If you take a wrong turning, then you're kind of even stuck for longer, all this kind of stuff. So all these associations, all these things churning around inside your head, yeah? Okay, so just for a second, just to play a little bit of a game, if that's okay. What I'd like you to do is imagine yourself driving along the motorway. And I'd like you to imagine, again, all these voices coming into your head. And for this first time, what I'd like you to do is I'd just like you to vocalize the internal dialogue.
Right, okay.
Yeah? So let us...
Really?
Absolutely. Say it out loud.
So
What the...
wheel.
Yep. So what are the voices saying?
Okay. Do I have to go this fast? Here comes a great big lorry. Oh, no. Can I get past it? Yes, I'm getting past it. Oh, whoosh! A big wind. This lorry.
What about the?
Now where's my turn off?
Where's my turn off?
What turn off?
What about-
Is this turn off or next one? Oh, is it this one or the next one? Which one is it? I'm not sure. Suppose I take the wrong one. Oh, then I'm going to be stuck somewhere where I don't know. Where will I be?
Okay, what about the kind of accidents that happen on motorways?
I don't like going so fast because it's so dangerous if something happens. What about if an idiot comes out in front of me or something?
There's always
Might not
another
be able to
idiot,
stop.
isn't it?
Yeah.
There's always an idiot.
Yes, I might not be able to stop.
You see hundreds of them, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is go back to that internal dialogue, same internal dialogue, yeah, and I'd like you to slow that dialogue down and make it go very deep and very slow, almost like it's Mr. Bear talking. Okay, so the internal dialogue, as Mr. Bear would speak it.
Oh, look at that fool in front of me. He didn't leave you enough time. Oh, he's dangerous.
Who's
Not
dangerous?
to be on the motorway. Oh, is it coming to my exit yet? Is it this one? No, it might be the next one. Is it or isn't it? Is it or isn't it? Oh, I'm not sure. If I turn off the wrong way, I might get lost. Where will I end up?
In the woods, Mr. Bear.
Oh, dearie me, that's scary.
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 Okay, so now let's have this internal dialogue, as Mickey Mouse might say it. Hey, Pluto! Mickey Mouse. So how might Mickey Mouse be saying this? Yeah, well, you did volunteer, you know. Yeah.
You silly idiot! What are you doing up there? Move out of my way! Why are you going so slow? I need to go. No, you're going too fast. I'm going too fast. Where's the turning? Where's the turning? Is this turning? No, it's not this turning. Is it next turning? No, it's not next turning. Is it next turning? No, it's not that one. Which one is it? Which one is it? Oh, dearie me, will I get lost?
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. So now we've got Mr. Bear and we've got Mickey Mouse. And now I'd like you to alternate between the two.
Oh,
Having a call.
dearie me. Where am I? Oh, look at that idiot there. What's he doing? Is it the right stop? Is it the right stop? Is it the right? Is it the right turning? Oh, is it this one? Oh, is it that one? No. Oh, this. Where's I get lost? Oh, dearie me. I'm going too fast. I don't like.
I don't know what it looks like from there, but it looks pretty funny from here.
I'm scared. Oh, dearie me. Oh, dear. Oh, what's that up front? Is it an accident? Oh, dearie me.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Might
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Bear, and thank you, Mickey. Or Minnie, or Mickey. I couldn't tell which one that was. Maybe it was Pluto. I don't know. You tell me. You don't know either. Okay.
I don't know.
So now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to come with me to the cinema. Yep. So these are our cinema seats. And just in front of you up there is the cinema screen. Now, what I'd like you to do is just think of a time when you felt that internal dialogue, you felt the palpitations. Remember you talked about the palpitations? Do you remember a particular time when you were driving and you felt all of that? A particular occasion? Was it daytime or nighttime? When was it?
Nighttime.
It was nighttime. Okay, so you've got the darkness as well. And just talk me through very briefly what happened when those palpitations came on and so on.
I was short of breath.
Mm-hmm. So what was the scenario? Are you driving on the motorway?
Driving on the motorway.
Uh-huh. It's night?
It was night, and night's not. Sometimes you can't see as well as you should be able to.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know. I was lost. I didn't know where I was.
So we're
going.
lost as well. So lost on the motorway that you can't get off.
I didn't know where I was going. Not sure where I was going. So having to worry about the dark,
Mm-hmm.
about the other drivers,
Uh-huh.
about being in the right lane,
Uh-huh.
about where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few.
Are these not also, if I may ask, fairly standard things in terms of every time you drive somewhere, you've got to watch other drivers, be in the right lane and so on?
Yes, they are. but you're not going 60, 70 miles an hour.
So the difference is you're doing 60, 70 miles an hour?
The reflexes fast enough. They should be fast enough, but are they?
Okay, so again, you're driving, you're lost, it's dark, you're on the motorway, you're doing whatever speed you're doing, and you're feeling these heart palpitations and so on. What else are you feeling?
I'm feeling a strong wish to get where I'm going and get off the motorway.
Okay.
I'm feeling unempowered. I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling my heart is beating fast, hence the palpitations.
Okay.
I'm feeling sort of cowering, I suppose. I'm sort of getting close, grabbing onto the steering wheel for dear life and getting
For dear life.
dear life, yes, getting closer.
So if you were
Anxious,
looking anxious,
looking at and feeling anxious.
so you're feeling anxious. So you would label this state as sort of anxious,
Anxiety. Yeah.
anxiety. Okay, so all of this is happening, and what happened in the end?
Got there in the end.
You got there in the end.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what I'd like you to do now, there's the cinema screen, and I would like you to think of that particular time. From the time before those feelings started.
Okay.
Yeah? From a time when you felt perfectly normal, whatever that means, perfectly safe. Was there a time on that journey you felt perfectly safe?
Yes, before I got on the.
So before you got on the motorway, so when did the feelings actually start? And those kind of feelings that you're talking about, when did they actually start?
On the motorway.
When on the motorway?
When I wasn't sure where I was going. I guess.
Okay. So had you managed to drive onto the motorway initially and not have those feelings?
I actually don't think I was meant to be in the motorway. I got in there by accident.
Ah, okay. So you're driving along, and you find yourself in one of those slip roads that take you onto the motorway, and you realise you're going onto the motorway, and is that when it all begins?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. So you're driving along. While you were driving on the normal roads, so to speak, the non-motorway roads, did you experience any of those
No,
feelings?
I felt perfectly safe.
So everything was fine?
Perfectly safe, yeah.
Okay, so then you turn onto the slip road, or you're caught on the slip road, or whatever it may be, and you find yourself going down onto a motorway. You're not sure where you're going. It's dark. And so at what point did you begin to feel and sense those sensations of anxiety, so to speak?
As soon as I realised I was in the motorway and I didn't know where I was
Okay.
going and it was dark.
Great, okay. And at what point did the anxiety subside?
When I began to know where I was going and knew that I would soon be able to get off the motorway.
Okay, so were you still on the motorway when you realised, oh, I do know where that is? Was it a junction sign that you saw?
Yes, yes.
And you realised you knew where you were going then?
Yes, yes. And
So,
yes, and I felt better then.
okay, so you're still on the motorway, you've been through that experience, and now you're still on the motorway and you see a sign, you recognise it, you know where you're going. And so while you're still on the motorway, does the anxiety subside?
It does a bit, but not completely until I'm off it.
Okay, until what point when you're off it?
When I'm off it.
As in on the slip road or on the other road?
On the other road.
Okay, so you come off the slip road, yeah, as you exit the motorway,
Yeah.
and you join a non-motorway road, and at that point, how are you?
Feel perfectly normal and safe.
Perfectly normal and safe. Okay, so what I want us to do is I want us to start when you're on the normal road, and then you find yourself on this slip road onto the motorway. You find yourself going onto the motorway and all of these feelings start, yeah. And it's dark and everything else that's going on around, as you know. And then you see the sign, and then you turn off and you pull onto the non-motorway road, where you then felt completely fine. Yep. So our start point, so to speak, is going to be when you're on the non-motorway road and you're fine, and literally just before you turn onto the motorway road and find yourself there. And our end point is going to be as you pull off the exit onto the normal road. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And in the interest of time, we're not going to play out the full 40 minutes or however long it was. We're going to shrink that bit in the middle. The bit where you experience the anxiety, all of those feelings that you talked about, we're going to condense those down. So you're going to watch, if you like, a shortened or edited version of that. And we're going to finish when you pull onto the normal road and you're feeling perfectly normal. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so here's the screen in front of you. So what I'd like you to do is start this movie. I'd like you to watch a movie of what you've just described. Start this movie when you're on the normal road, and you find yourself pulling onto the motorway.
Right, okay.
And I'd like you to stop it when you pull off the motorway onto the normal road.
Right,
Okay, and edit down the bit in the middle just with all the anxiety. Okay, away you go, watch your movie. So you're starting safe, then that bit in the middle, and then you're finishing safe. Okay, and where are you now?
I'm safe.
You're safe. Good, it's all gone, yeah? Fantastic, excellent. Is that good? You could see all of that?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So now would you come with me into the projection room?
Okay.
Come on. Here we go. So I'd like to invite you to come with me, literally.
Oh, okay.
So here we are. We're coming into the projection booth. So we come this way a little bit. And looking through that little window of the projection room, yeah, we're looking at you there in the audience
Right.
watching the movie. So if we swap places, actually, if you stand down here, so you've got a better view of you. So now I'd like you to watch you watching the movie. So you're going to play this movie through, again on the screen, and you're going to start where you're safe. You're going to run through that bit in the middle when you're on the motorway, and you're going to white out that bit.
Right, okay.
You with me? So we're starting the video, or the movie, or whatever you want to call it. You can see it all. The bit in the middle where all of that happened, you're just going to white it out.
Right, okay.
So the movie's playing behind it, but you just can't see it. And then we're going to finish with you again seeing the video, or the movie, with you safe.
Right, okay.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'd like you to play that through in black and white,
Okay.
whiting out the middle bit. Okay? When you're ready, away you go.
Right, okay.
Yep. Okay. And one more time. So there's you watching it.
Right, okay.
Okay. So just for a second, can you see yourself down there in the stalls watching?
Yeah.
And there's the movie. Okay, play it through again. Fast forward, black and white, whiting out the middle.
Right.
Okay. So now I'm going to invite you to come back into the auditorium. Take your seat. Sorry, there's no popcorn. Okay. So now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to step into this movie.
Right, okay.
And as you step into this movie, I'd like you to start at the very end of the movie when you're safe. And I'd like you to be experiencing this movie through your own eyes. So you're now in the movie.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you're going to experience this, and you're going to run the movie backwards, in color, backwards, from when you are pulling off the motorway, you're onto the safe road and you're feeling safe. You're going to play it all the way backwards, all the way along the motorway, all the way back to before you pulled onto it.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Seeing it all through your own eyes.
Right, okay.
Okay? And when you're ready, step into the movie, play it all backwards. How was that? You could do that? Okay, now I'd like you to imagine that we're back in the projection booth, but we won't go there. I'd like you to play the video or the movie, fast forward in black and white, whiting out the middle bit up until the end. Let me know when you've done that. And this time I'd like the audience to help. Everybody! If you're not doing it now, you'll do it as a solo. Yeah, no, 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 no. You know it as well. Let's hear it. There we go. Good. Stop. Fantastic. Okay, ready? So that's what we're going to do on the fast forward in black and white, okay? Ready? So we're going to start at the beginning of the movie. Fast forward black and white, white out the middle. We're imagining you're in the booth, but not actually going to go there. So fast forward in black and white, whiting out the middle bit. As we go fast forward in black and white, Benny Hill. Okay, you ready? Here we go. And... Done? Well, she hated that so much that she made that video very fast forward. Okay, now backwards in color, normal speed all the way back. You stepping in the movie, seeing this through your eyes. Away you go. Done?
Okay, yeah.
Great. Fast forward in black and white. Here. Yep. Okay, stop. And now backwards in color, all the way back. Seeing yourself reversing down that motorway. Well, you're backwards in color.
So is everybody else.
And by the way, so is everybody else, yes. Yeah. I don't want to increase the phobia.
Right,
Okay?
Right.
Okay, fast forward in black and white. Okay. Don't build your part. Okay, now backwards in colour. Reversing all the way down that motorway. Backwards in colour, normal speed. Yep, good. And forward, fast forward in black and white. Benny Hill, but not Benny Hill on Valium, please. Okay, with that?
Yeah.
Okay, backwards in colour. Everything's happening backwards.
Okay.
Okay, now fast forward in black and white. Wake up. And now backwards in colour. Fast forward in black and white.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, thank you. Backwards in colour. Fast forward in black and white. Come on. Stop it, she said. Stop it, stop it. Backwards in colour.
Right.
Fast forward in black and white. And backwards in colour. Good. Back, forward, forward, forward. I can't even speak. I'm so excited.
Right, okay.
Okay, backwards in colour.
Okay.
I don't think you need me anymore. You know where you're going with this. Okay, fast forward in black and white. Why don't you go in the middle bit? Come on, Kevin.
Oh, the white, the middle bit's gone.
Middle bit's gone. Oh my gosh, you've edited it out. Okay, you've forgotten it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And backwards in colour, all the way back, 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 back.
Okay.
Go. Whoosh. I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. And Benny Hill will never sound the same again. So now you find yourself, let's say you have to go to, where do you live?
Where do I
Live.
live?
In London?
Yes, South Croydon.
South Croydon. And have you ever had to drive up to Birmingham or somewhere like that?
Oh, Lord, no.
Oh, Lord, no. Anyone from Birmingham? Apologies in advance.
That's a long
Yes.
way.
Let's say you did, for some reason, you have to go up there. And the quickest route is to go by motorway. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's, first of all, it's daylight, okay? And you know where you're pulling on, and you know where you're pulling off. And you can control the car, of course, and the car speed, because that's what your right foot does. And so where you go, so you have to drive along to get to Birmingham or wherever it may be. There you are, pootling along like Mr. Bean, or not, as the case may be. It's certainly not if he's driving a McLaren, if you've seen the newspapers. So you're driving up to Birmingham on the motorway in the sunshine, okay? Not lost, know where you're going, first of all. Driving along, how does it feel?
It sort of feels better, but I sort of think I'm going to have to do it to
I think that's a good idea.
myself.
I think that's a good idea, certainly.
Yeah, I'd have to, maybe not
So
go as
let's-
far as Birmingham to begin with, go a bit nearer.
We could go
M23.
M23 to Brighton. And we've got a beach to welcome you at the other end, albeit stony. So let's drive to Brighton. So you pull on at Croydon or thereabouts, just after Croydon, and you're driving down towards Brighton Beach.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think I can,
On 23, how does it feel?
that feels okay.
Feels
I think
okay.
I can manage that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that feels okay.
It actually feels okay?
It feels okay, yeah,
Okay.
it feels okay.
Let's say you're driving out, let's say you decided because you're going to go out with the girls, and you're going to go out in Brighton. So now you're going to jump onto the motorway, the M23,
Right.
good old M23 to Brighton, to, there's no beach. Well, there is a beach, M23. It's the same one you were driving down a minute ago,
Oh,
exactly the same road.
23, isn't it?
It's the 23. So you pull onto that, how does that feel? Driving along, going to meet the
25,
girls.
Yeah, that feels okay.
M23, not 25, by the way.
But M23, am I going in M23?
23.
Yeah, the M23.
So what are you, a tom-tom or what?
23 seems fine, yeah.
Okay, so you're driving that, how does that feel?
That feels okay, actually.
Feels
I mean,
okay.
I could go to Gatwick Airport, maybe go
Yes,
to...
it's even halfway. It's even
yeah,
halfway.
go to Gatwick. I can see myself going to Gatwick.
How does that feel?
That feels okay.
Okay, we're going to have to test this, or I'm not going to have to test it. You're going
I'm
to,
going to have to test
if you want to, if you wish to,
Yes,
that's the best way of
okay.
testing this.
it. Yeah.
And how does it just feel, if you just think about yourself doing that, how does it feel? You've got your tom-tom.
It's a lot better. I feel that I might be able to cope with it.
Well, there's only one way to find
Yeah,
out.
I might be. So perhaps I have to go and pick somebody up.
I'm not even going to go there, especially in Brighton. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Okay. So, thank you indeed. So the fast phobia cure, a few things that, that we did at the very beginning before that, before we got into it. What was that? What did we do? Change the tempo. Actually, before that. So the very first thing we did. So we anchored because of what we were dealing with, we're talking about feeling that lack of confidence, really, because that's kind of one of the areas where that starts. It's the lack of confidence. It's the one thing then building on the other, what if, can't get off, speed, night, all those kind of things. Then we were looking for, I was looking anyway, for something where there's some support, there's some confidence, there's empowerment, which was a very good word that you used. So that seemed to be a good resourceful state to anchor just in case we needed to pull away from that if we were going to head in the opposite direction. So establishing a good resource state at the beginning and a resource anchor is a very useful thing to do for most of the processes, actually, that you'll be doing when you do NLP processes. Having done that, then what? You were, I think, beginning to say it.
Did it change the tempo?
Change of tempo, and what did we do to change the tempo, so to speak? The funny voices. So what's all that about, do you think? It's not in the brochure as such, a brochure or the
It's a different
printout.
process, isn't it? It's by changing the tempo, you change the meaning of what's being said.
Yeah.
And it becomes unimportant sometimes, especially if it's slow, right?
Sure. So what we're changing, actually, is rather than specifically the tempo as such, we're changing the submodalities of the sounds. So we're playing with those voices in the head that are telling us, because it's the voices that are beginning to actually bring the elements of that state on that we don't want. And it's playing with them to alter our relationship to them, yeah? The submodalities of those voices, when they sound like Mr. Bear, or they sound like Mickey Mouse, they become something different. Yeah, they become something different. Ashley?
I was just going to say, I mean, my interpretation of that was that it was to make them almost sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
So to basically, you know, when you're rationalising it in your head,
Yeah.
make it sound ridiculous, the rationale doesn't hold as much water.
Sure. You know, sometimes you can see, if you calibrate the person you're working with, that the actual phobia as such can disappear at that stage. I've seen it many times where the phobia has disappeared at that stage. So once we've done that, then we get into the phobia as is usually written down in terms of the printouts and the step-by-step guide. So the first thing we do, or once we've got beyond those two little stages, is what? What was the first thing that I did? I asked a question. What was the question?
Do you remember a time you learned quickly?
Yes, exactly. So what's that about?
Reminding them that they can pick up things very, very quickly.
Absolutely.
Opening up their impression.
Yeah, well, yes. Impressionable or able to learn, maybe another way of saying that. So yes, that they're able to learn something very, very quickly. Yes,
Also,
Angela.
if you can learn to dispel a phobia,
Yeah.
you learned it quickly, so you can dispel it quickly as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And remember that we're talking about a VK dissociation. So when you think about motorways, I mean, I can ask you this, that if you think about a motorway, do you get images of lanes and darkness and trucks and all kinds of things, and then you get all these kind of feelings that then come along with it? I mean, I'm guessing that that's what's happening. You're nodding. So therefore, we're talking about the visual and the kinesthetic link happening, yeah? And the process that we're talking about, of course, is the VK dissociation. So we're going to be breaking that. So having established that people can learn very quickly, then what did we do? Or Angela and myself? What? Luca?
Just previous point.
Yep.
You're presenting a new belief. Did you accept that as a new belief?
Which
Because
bit?
because the phobia could be created very quickly
Yep.
in a second, but you then decided that you believed it could be therefore discharged very quickly. Has
Precisely.
that something ever occurred to you before?
Yes, because it sort of has, because when I was doing the practitioner course, we did the same, so we did the same, and actually I did experience, I haven't been on a motorway yet, but I did go on a road that I didn't like very much. There again, a straight road, like a motorway, but not a motorway.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel about the road the same as I used to feel about it.
Sure.
I sort of thought of the countryside wrapping its arms around me as I was driving along. I was thinking, oh, this is cuddling me. And I actually was able to, that particular road that I didn't like, I was able to drive along quite happily and, you know, better than I could before. So I have a feeling that I will feel
Sure.
better about motorways in the future.
Is that important thing to, if you present a new belief, then that's been like a crutch to
Yeah, if you think about it, one of the things that a lot of people say, the belief, and it's absolutely what you're talking about, is that change is difficult and change takes a long time. If you believe that, then there will be some resistance coming from you to all forms of change because you are expecting it to actually take time. If you flip that, I mean, this is why Milton Erickson would say things like, for example, I don't know if this change is going to happen today. It might happen on Monday, or it could happen a week today. I don't know. I don't know when. And if the person does not reject it, then their system, if you like, is being set up to expect change. Yeah? It's a belief.
Is this like a sleight of mouth, yeah?
It's like a sleight of mouth, but it is conversational belief change as well. But belief systems are very, very important. Yeah? Belief systems allow change to happen. Does that make sense? Yeah. So so we set up and we establish the fact that we can change, we can learn very quickly. Having done that, we then elicited the kind of feelings that are associated for Angela when she's driving. What happens in terms of this phobia, these feelings, the anxiety and so on, just to establish what is going on, and the voices, and then the palpitations, and then the thoughts, etc., etc. So having established, very, very interesting, what came out of that in terms of finding yourself on a slip road onto a motorway and you didn't want to go on it. Yeah? I remember being told when I was in South Africa, whatever you do, don't drive into the center of South Africa. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Don't drive into the center of Johannesburg. Yeah? Avoid the center of Johannesburg because it's dangerous. So I was driving along on the sort of ring road that ran around the outside with my video camera, filming as I was driving, very stupidly. And what I didn't realize, I was in a lane that became the slip lane to come off into the very center of Johannesburg. And the second I realized it was too late for me to do anything about it, I then started to sweat, I started to have palpitations, very much like you were saying, and I found myself in the center of Johannesburg, exactly where I told not to be. Say again?
Bonfire of Vanities.
Bonfire of the Vanities, yeah. So that is quite a shock. So there is a strong kinesthetic then suddenly that's fused to this vision of the center of Johannesburg, etc. So very similar. Yours was when you found yourself on a road leading you onto a motorway which you couldn't get off. Now, isn't it interesting that your phobia, so to speak, is that you're on a motorway and you can't get off it? Yeah, there are, because you know that it's not one straight road from Land's End to John O'Groats, that there are multiple exits to a motorway. However, how important is the fact that you found yourself on a road that you could not avoid going onto the motorway, and that kind of shocking realization is quite a strong one, quite a powerful one. And then, of course, all those feelings associated to being on it, and suddenly you know that you're going to get off. So immediately the feelings then begin to subside because you know that the exit is there, and then when you're off it, of course, freedom, or whatever it may be. So in talking to you, certain things then became apparent, and that's what we then put up on the screen. So the very first time when we go into the cinema, we are dissociating from the experience. We are watching that experience on the screen, because usually when we replay scenarios like that, we replay them how? Associated in the first person, first perceptual position, associated. We're associated to that. So by watching it on the screen, we're dissociated. So we are watching it in a dissociated position. Does that make sense? So we watch it through. Then the next step is we came to the projection booth. And from the projection booth, we are watching ourselves watching the movie. There's a further dissociation. Yeah? So we are double dissociating. We watch the movie. How do we watch the movie? What's happening to the movie now? It's fast forward. So we're changing the submodality of the speed of it.
Whiting out the anxiety, or the bit that causes the anxiety.
We're taking out, whiting out the phobic bit. What else? It's in black and white. So we're changing the submodalities. Often when you make something black and white, you again further dissociate from it. So we're fast forward in black and white, whiting out the middle bit. And then after that, we come away from the projection booth back into the auditorium, or stalls, or wherever we are. Dress circle, depends how much money you've actually forked out. And here we are, looking again on the screen. This time what happens? What do we do? Again? Backwards in color, how? Again, sorry? Well, actually, normal speed backwards in color.
Is it the whole image or the image without them writing it?
The whole image. The whole image. Absolutely. Good point. And what's the difference? There's a big difference from how we've been watching it.
They're stepped in.
We stepped in and we're now associated to it. So now we're associated to it, watching it through our own eyes, but playing it backwards. Reversing very carefully down that motorway. Fortunately, everybody else is reversing as well. So we play the movie back to the beginning. And we always start the movie and end the movie how? Safe. This is critical, yeah? So we start safe, we end safe. So we play the movie backwards, watching it through our own eyes. And then what? He says, not giving away anything with a sweep of his hand. Fast forward.
With music.
In black and white, with a very, very laid-back Benny Hill, who got less laid back and then went laid back again. So yes, fast forward in black and white. Again, safe, white out, safe, backwards in color. Fast forward black and white, safe, white out, safe, backwards in color. And again, we're playing with the associations, and also the experience is entirely different when you're playing it backwards through your own eyes. Yeah? So it's another form of playing with the submodalities. And we are breaking the link between the visual and the kinesthetic, because what caused the visual kinesthetic cannot happen the way that we're playing it. Yeah? So we keep doing that, and always we are calibrating our client, because you can see when somebody has that kind of fear response or whatever it may be, and when it's completely gone, when they just don't feel the kinesthetic, yeah, which is your visual cue, calibrated cue, that this has been broken, and then you test it. The only way to test this motorway is to ask how it feels, because we can't actually do it in this room. If it was a spider phobia or something like that, we could have a little spider there, preferably somewhere it can't get out, for my benefit, here, so that we can then bring it out and test it in reality. Does that make sense? So the only way really, one, you've actually described how you've driven down a road. Experience feeling better about it.
Motorway type road.
Motorway type road, exactly. And now would be,
So hopefully I can take the next step.
yeah, book a girls' night out, or go to Gatwick and do what I used to do and sit there and watch all those lucky people flying somewhere and then drive back home again. I didn't used to do that. So that's the fast phobia cure, yeah? The dissociation. We're dissociating, we're changing the submodalities, and we're breaking the visual kinesthetic link. And it can be used for unpleasant memories. It doesn't have to just be used for phobias. It's also a good way of breaking links to things that we find an unpleasant link. Does that make sense? It's very simple. It's a lot of fun. For the purpose of us just going through it, let's not do the resource anchor. Yeah? So we can leave that bit out, the resource anchor that we did at the beginning. However, I would suggest to you it's always good practice to set up a resource anchor before you do anything, really, because it can be very useful and doesn't take very long.
Just a question with the resource
Julia.
anchor. When might you have then used the resource anchor with Angela if something had...
If
she just started getting anxious?
Yeah, if she'd gone into an unresourceful state and was kind of getting sort of stuck in it, then using the resource anchor to help her just come away from it would be very, very useful. Yep. And that's when.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions? The steps, you've got the steps written down on the handouts. Fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Enjoy it. Do your own Benny Hill music. And then we can find out who it was specifically when we listen to them that was actually the kind of Valium Benny Hill. And that can be a secondary task that Kevin can be given. Okay, so find yourself a partner. No one here has a particular phobia, apparently, anyway, so from what we said. So put something into it and just do a version of that. Does that make sense? So find yourselves a partner. Let's space out in the room. Let's do it. Let's just go through the steps, get the experience of doing it. And see you in a few. See you. Let's see if you can do this in 10 minutes each way. 10 minutes each way. So away you go. See you back here in 20 minutes. Experience, even though you may have been slightly role-playing if you don't have a particular phobia, how did you find the process, the steps of the process? Any questions about the intention behind steps in the process or anything like that?
Well, we can start if you don't mind us talking about that. Fantastic. When I was with clients,
Yep.
one of the things that we discussed afterwards was simplifying the steps.
Mhm.
So sometimes you were reading it and it was really clear, but then when you tried to overcomplicate it, you was a bit unsure what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So we almost did it again and said, right, let's really simplify the steps. And then it was just so, it really is what is written down now. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And
Yeah.
that worked much, much better.
I think that's a great comment. With most of these things, actually, that the simpler you make it, the more effective it is. Because one of the things, if you remember from practitioner training and so on, there's a great tendency for people to get really caught up in content. And when you get caught up in content, you can often go off the point. Because we're working with some modalities, we can't do a lot with content. It's a process-driven philosophy, if you like, rather than a content-driven philosophy. So if you keep it really to changing the submodalities, winding it forward, etc., just keeping it simple, you'll get the change. If you spend a lot of time adding things in, you can extend the process and sometimes be missing the point slightly. So that's a very good comment, very good observation. So when you simplified it, it worked stronger. Is that right? Fantastic. Great. Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else? What was your experience of it? Did anybody else here do it?
Actually, I just reinforce what this was. The one that we did, when you were up doing this earlier, we actually knew what it was about. It was about highway phobia and what have you.
Yeah.
And I remember back to my practitioner course, and when we did it, there was no content at all. But I've got no idea what it was. And I think that's quite good because it means that the client can think about whatever it is in whatever detail they want, knowing that you've got no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it has that kind of privacy, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it gets dealt with.
Absolutely.
This is really kind of the nice thing about this particular process, I think.
Yeah.
No content.
Yeah, one of the great things about NLP is the fact that it's process-driven, not content-driven. So you can get to the heart of the matter very quickly. It doesn't matter what happens with you as the coach because it's not about you. It's what's the experience of that person. And that person knows what's happening, what they're going through, what it all relates to. And because you're playing with the submodalities, fast forward in black and white, you don't need to know what you're fast forwarding necessarily. Backwards in color, you don't need to know what that is. So absolutely.
But don't you need to know that, sorry Steve, to know the safe to safe?
Well, again, safe to safe. So you're starting at a time when you're
Make
perfectly
sure that
safe.
they know where it's safe and that
Precisely.
it's safe for them.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's causing them the issue. So before that, when it wasn't happening,
I just thought if we're not identifying what they're actually doing and it's staying quite private, then sometimes when dealing with a client, they often feel it's safe, but actually they preempt the anxiety, so it's
so
a
your
bit harder. So I'm just saying if you're not knowing what they're talking about, but you're running it in this kind of...
sure.
Yeah.
So your fluidity as a coach, your skill as a coach, would be to make sure of that, but you still don't need the content.
No.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of being able to work in this way, that you don't need the content. So
You just
that
check
really...
it again and say how are you feeling at this bit and stuff before
Yeah.
you actually run it.
Was there anything happening here? Were you perfectly safe? And you can calibrate from someone if they're congruent and I was safe here. If they're going, I was safe here, there may be some investigation there just to make sure that that's the right place. Yeah. Was there a comment here just then?
No, I was just saying with just the content one as well, you can avoid transference because we don't really want to know what your problems are.
Yeah.
We can help it.
There's all kinds of benefits
take
to.
those things on.
I do agree a lot that it allows you to do the process most purely because you might want to, you might have all that, what you're going through at the time.
Yeah.
I think.
There are all kinds of reasons why working content-free is quite good. John Grinder often says that he believes that the reason why Virginia Satir died of cancer, and such a strong form of cancer, was because of all the stuff that she had spent years taking on board for other people. And one of the things that Grinder said before he went down to model Milton Erickson is, I need to install some filters first to protect me, because Milton Erickson had 2 of the 3 forms of polio and other illnesses too. He was in a wheelchair. And Grinder thought, if I'm going to spend 9 months modeling this guy, there's a big possibility that I'm going to take on board some of this stuff. Because if you know, all you have to do is adopt the physiology of somebody and you begin to get the kinesthetics. Yeah? This is why we mirror as coaches and so on. So therefore, there's a good reason to install filters. And if we're working content-free, of course, you're not taking a lot of that stuff on board. If you're working with content, you are taking a lot of that stuff on board. And again, and if you are working that way, making sure that you can kind of shake it off, not just with a sloppy chops, but a good, solid way of getting rid of all that stuff, cleansing yourself of all that stuff at the end of every day, and so on.
I think it's quite interesting what they're saying about content free, because there was, even though I was quite happy verbalizing my experience or what I was feeling through most of it, there did come a point where he asked me, so what are you feeling? And I came to a sort of a point where I was like, I don't know what word to describe what I'm feeling, because I'm really feeling it, but I can't, there's a word that I can associate that matches it.
Yeah,
And so he said, that's fine, don't worry about it, let's move on.
yeah.
And that was okay, because then I wasn't distracted then with trying to describe it. I was still in the moment.
Absolutely. Isadora Duncan said, if I could say it, I wouldn't have to dance it. There are times when words simply aren't enough to describe a feeling or a sensation. But as long as you know what that experience is, that's what's important, because the coach can still work with that, and because you know how that feels, for example. Yes, great, that's the feeling, amplify it, or whatever it may be. Absolutely. Yeah, so good, very good. Good. Any other questions, comments, observations? I mean, we've been working sort of hypothetically, because people here have not necessarily had a phobia, so to speak. If you were to take this to somebody, or somebody rather would come to you and say, I have this phobia, can you help me? Are there any questions you might have to assist that process? Or are you quite confident that you could simply guide them through the steps? Yes, Alex.
Just to be clear,
Alexandra.
double associating.
Yeah.
It is double associating. You're still in the booth. Watching
So,
yourself,
yeah.
both on the fast forward, blanked out, and reverse in colour.
So when you come back here, absolutely. So now we're in the booth, we're double dissociating because we're seeing ourselves there and watching the screen. Fast forward in black and white, whiting out the middle bit. When we come back here, so now we're back in the auditorium, you can float from there directly into the screen if you wish. It's entirely a device just to get you away from there. Now you're going to step into the screen, or you can float in the screen, or you can do a double somersault into the screen if you wish. And now you're associated to looking through your own eyes. When you go backwards in color, rather than have to get off the stool and walk back into the booth, if you still have the impression of being double dissociated, as if you were in the booth but we're not actually going to go there, you can do if you wish. You can be doing a kind of a Benny Hill run between the two if you wish. So you're fast forward in black and white, whiting out the middle, double dissociated. Even though you're sat here, you're kind of using, so because they've done it, they've got the experience of it.
So it is double dissociated, black
Yep.
and white forward.
Yep.
In the movie, colour back.
Exactly that, without whiting out the middle bit, going backwards. Absolutely. But the great thing about this is you don't have to stick to those rules. It'll still work. Yeah, it'll still work. So you can go forward. You know, for example, here in the book it says once forward, black and white in the particular book, the information I've given you, but I did 2 or 3. So you can be completely fluid. Do 2 or 3 from here, or do 1 from here, do a couple from here. And then when you're here, you're calibrating your client. Do I need a few more? What if I make, bring in some, not only Benny Hill, but now the 1812 Overture as well, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can play with it. As long as you know what the intention is behind each step, you can be creative. Staying in process, not content, yeah? And
going with that, actually, that's the nice thing. When we're here, we've got this list, and you go, oh, crikey, what's next? Should I do this? So when you actually have a client, they've got no idea what it's supposed to be like. So they'll go along with you. And as you say, if you have the right kind of intention, get it kind of right,
Yeah.
pretty much, and you've got the dissociation, etc.,
Yeah.
then it will work.
Exactly. So let's say you completely make a mess of those steps. You can still have exactly the same outcome pretty much. Yeah, because what you're doing is you're playing with the association, dissociation, and especially if you've got a bit of comedy in there as well. If it's not necessary, but it certainly can help. The funny voices are not necessary, but again, they're dissociations and they're changing the submodalities. So there is room for creativity. There is room for your personality. There is room for being flexible based on what happens in front of you. As long as you understand what the intention is, great. Yeah.
You mentioned on the list too about using the swish as a clean-up at the end. Yeah. So what might you have done with Angela's, just to have done a swish at the end of it?
Yeah. I would, the swish, of course, uses a trigger.
Yeah.
And normally a phobia is a VK association. So you'll see the spider, and that will be the trigger for the response, right? So that is suitable for the swish process. So you could quite simply go, okay, so now what I'd like you to do is, let's talk about one of those times in the past, for example, when this happened. So you have a spider, okay, play the movie, freeze frame at the trigger point before the reaction kicks in, standard swish. And then having done that, you've got that image, you put that image away, elicit some of the submodalities, put that image away. And then you go to the same point again, trigger point, and now you step out of yourself, so you're dissociated. The first one was associated. And now you make that image as compelling as possible, as attractive as possible, as whatever is compelling or attractive for you, make it bigger, smaller, whatever, color, vivid, sharp, focused, whatever, becomes very vivid. Then you send that out, and now we're back into just a normal standard swish. Send it out to the horizon, getting smaller as it goes, bring back the original image, and then swish between the two, resetting, not swishing them in and out like this. So you do a standard swish until the person can't get the original image back anymore. And so you've done a swish just as an extra bit of cleanup. Yeah, it's a very nice add-on to the fast phobia cure.
So it's just a real clean-up,
Bless you.
taking that away rather than now feeling confident in that and just having blanked out the...
Yes, just, and in this case, just use it as a cleanup.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you treat other dissociations? So if the reaction was from a smell?
From a
smell.
From a smell. So if the trigger, again, so what you've got is a, for example, it could be a smell or a sound or something like that that produces the response. So can you give me an example?
Maybe the smell of petrol.
Smell of petrol?
Would trigger an event.
Okay, so smell of petrol. So what event would the smell of petrol trigger? So this is purely hypothetical, is it? It's not real. Okay, so what could the smell of... So let's say this is something that you bring to the table. So the smell of petrol has brought about an anxiety or state or something, a phobia, phobic response in you. What's going through your head, potentially?
It could be just purely physical. So it could be I smell something and then get a physical response.
Like a nauseous from the petrol smell.
Yeah, or an anxiety.
Which possibly is not something that you put into this process. In terms of the nausea because of the smell is not maybe something you wouldn't put into this process. When you said anxiety, where's the anxiety coming from? What's driving the anxiety?
I don't know, is everyone going to always know the underlying?
Well, I would, if this was a real situation, I'd ask you, I'd look for example, the strategy that you're running. What is the smell of petrol triggering in you? Is it triggering, for example, I have no idea because it's hypothetical, but let's say the smell of petrol brings about a fear of burning alive. Yeah, fairly standard. You can see a connection there. So what is happening? So if we were to elicit the strategy you're running, so you start with an olfactory, yeah? And does that then prompt, for example, a visual or kinesthetic or a visual of you burning and then the kinesthetic? So now we're building a strategy to find out what's going on inside you that's causing you to have the reaction. If it's a nauseous because of the smell of petrol, that could be a physical thing because of the smell of petrol. That's a different thing. If it's an anxiety caused by the link or the anchor, if you like, of the smell of petrol to burning in hell or whatever, and as we, what would be interesting is to examine that and find out if there was something like kids messing about, when you're maybe 4 or 5 years old, and there's some petrol, you're messing about with petrol, something happens and something burns down or somebody gets hurt or something like that. Then later in life, you may have forgotten that, But now when you smell petrol, you get this anxiety. I mean, that would be interesting to find out if it led there. So what I'm saying is, in a real situation, when you bring that to me, I would ask certain questions and find out what's going on.
So the
And then-
strategy is to try and bring it back to a visual so that you can then...
No, we're not trying to make it fit this process. We're just trying to find out what is happening. And once I know what's happening, then I can design an intervention. Yeah? So it's fascinating to do that. And when that happens, and we know that it's a phobia that's being created, we can also find out what happened and change maybe there's guilt associated to that too, and there's all kinds of things which John Thompson, for example, talks about a kid who, the banana kid, who every time this kid saw a banana, he broke out in anxiety and sweat and couldn't go into supermarkets, all kinds of things. And what happened was actually something happened with one of those banana boats where the kid nearly drowned, et cetera, and by going back and releasing that, suddenly the kid has no problems with bananas anymore. So you would do a little bit of investigation and then design the intervention, and it may be this process, it may lead you to something else, or it may be this process and lead you to something else.